Welcome! In front of me is a Sony Xperia 5 Mark V, another year, another Xperia. So, without further ado, let's just get into the unboxing and a quick look at this phone. So just as before, the packaging for a nearly $1,000 device seems as disappointing as it did before. And I'm trying to figure out how to get inside here. There we go. So, this seems worse than a cardboard box because it's not even like just clapped over each other. So anyway, not much has changed, to be honest, with the packaging. It's still as disappointing as it used to be, and still just as disappointingly as before, we don't get a charger. Hell, you know what you don't even get? You don't even get the freaking cable anymore, because that's apparently e-waste too. But producing a $1,000 device, it's not an e-waste because it contributes to pockets of the CEOs. Yeah. Anyway, there's our brand new device. Now let's see if it can actually provide anything useful for the near $1,000 device and price tag. So let's look at the specs. We are looking at 6.1-inch display, 1080p by 2520 pixels. It's an OLED display, 1 billion colors, boasting 120 Hz refresh rate, HDR10. So Xperia decided to just even skimp out on a certification for the HDR10 Plus, because I'm pretty sure this OLED can push an 10 plus HDR. It's just getting the Plus in addition is a certification that you need to pay for, which I guess Sony decided, nah, screw it. We're gonna sell a $1,000 device without spending more on it. Such a middle finger. I love it. Anyway, outside of that, we have an 83% screen to body ratio. We do have this remote control shape. It's a 21:9 aspect ratio, as it was previously, and it is a pretty dense display. I don't mean that as an insult. It's a 449 pixels per inch because of the resolution and the relatively small screen size. So, that being said, we do have a bigger bezels than you might expect from a phone released at the end of 2023. So we do have a bit of a chin at the bottom and a forehead at the top. Which at 2023, like, come on, freaking even iPhones have smaller bezels than this, and they have a freaking like island, as they call it. So yeah, that's a bit of a more disappointing side. Moving on into the internals, we do have a pretty big battery for the size of this device. So it's a 5,000 mAh battery. It also boasts a 8 GB of RAM with 128 gigs of storage at the low end and goes up to 256 at the high end. Still disappointing, to be honest, considering it only goes to 256 for a device that's supposed to be catering to like photography and more professional use. This is pretty underwhelming. But luckily we do have expandable storage, unlike majority of the other devices on the market. So you can slap in a SD card in here, probably up to a terabyte, and voila, your device became now a 1 terabyte or over 1 terabyte device. So that's pretty good. Moving on, this device has a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, so the newest processor on the market right now, basically the best you can get on Android. Obviously not necessarily the best when it comes down in general when you compare it to iPhones. But iPhones are a little bit more limited than Android in terms of OS, so obviously you pick one, which one you want. This is still the best you can get on the Android side. Now, moving on into the cameras, considering this is an Xperia, it's supposed to have good cameras. We have a 48 megapixel f1.9 24mm wide lens, and then we get a 12 megapixel f2.2 16mm ultra wide lens. And to be honest, again, for a device that was released in September 2023, that's a bit of an yikes, my guy here. Like, come on, only 48 on a near $1,000 device? Come on. And in addition, they also gave you only 2 cameras instead of the typical 3 that you would get at this price. So yeah, no periscope, no like anything actual like decent here. I guess most of the budget went to marketing the Zeiss lenses here. And then on the front we got a 12 megapixel f2.0 24mm lens. Now with the back cameras you can shoot at 4K 60 frames max with I believe 120 slow motion, or it possibly could shoot at 120 frames per second video, I don't know, haven't checked it, it's not even set up yet, so that is something that you can check out. And at 1080p again you have 30, 60, 120. We have also optical image stabilization and gyro electronic image stabilization. So that is actually pretty good for stabilizing your images in general when you're recording videos and your hands tends to shake. Now flipping over to the actual front, which I was at, we have the 12 megapixel, which can shoot at 4K 30 frames and 1080p 30 or 60, again with 5-axis gyro electronic image stabilization. You cannot tell me that this is electronic image stabilization at the front. I do not believe that. Back, yeah, sure, that looks like it's stabilized. This, no, that's Loto BS, I would say. Something tells me that it's a little bit incorrect what I'm reading, but in any case, let's continue. So, moving on into some other features, we have a fingerprint sensor on the power button. Unlike most devices which have under the display. We do have a shutter button for a camera, so it's a two-phase one, so you have like the first like press basically starts to focus like old school cameras or DSLRs, and then you have another one when you press it more, it will capture a photo. And we do have surprisingly headphone jack on here. Or I should probably say not surprisingly, considering this is Xperia and they never shied away from a headphone jack, so all the Xperias, if I remember correctly, had a headphone jack and this one is no exception. Now, anything else to say? Now, I have one thing to mention, the build quality right here, or the design. So it's very similar to the previous ones. I am not the biggest fan of how it's designed right here on the edges. So you have the frame, and the frame, as you can see, goes kind of like flat and does this kind of weird whoopty-doopty right there, and it's not the most comfortable thing to hold, kind of digs into your hand. Personally, not the biggest fan of it. It has some sharp edges. Some people like this industrial look to it. I personally like the look, don't like the feel, and that's basically as best as I can describe it. So there we go, that basically sums up this device. It offers relatively decent package for the device, though let's be honest, they did skimp out on charger, cable even, and in general I feel like the Xperia phones are a niche market that not very many people will be getting. Not sure how they still stay in business considering they produce these every year, and unlike most other years, I'll have to admit this device is priced accordingly. At $900 I would say it's a fair price for this kind of device. Might be a little bit on the high end, but it's not egregiously outside of like realms of reality like some other devices, or even the Mark 1s, I believe, right? Or no, Sony 1 Mark 5 that will probably come out, or whichever way it goes. So that one will probably be a $1,200 device, while offering most likely the same specs as this one, just better cameras and bigger display. That's primarily what the difference will be there. And yeah, I don't think paying a little bit, or paying like $200 more for just additional camera like justifies that cost. Cameras don't cost that much, especially when they're from Sony. They're probably using Sony lenses and they're just calibrated by Zeiss, I believe, or not even calibrated, they're just bought the rights to slap in Zeiss on there. So that being said, this device will, or the bit more expensive one, will not have much of an upgrade over this one, just better cameras and be bigger while costing significantly more. And I would argue that probably the biggest cost on the device would be the processor in general to a user. So that's what you pay for primarily, to have a faster device, better one. There is no Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. So you're not gonna get any faster processor than what you have right here. So yeah. Now with that being said, I'm not really gonna go over the pros and cons right here, because this device is basically a flagship device, just kind of suffering in like camera department. So it really will depend on a user if someone likes this kind of device and if they have use for it, because to be honest, the Sony's, I believe, have a use case scenario for like professional work where you can, and I'm not sure if I'm correct right here, but I think you can use these devices as a secondary display, which does come with a calibrated display on here. So obviously that will add to versatility to this device, where you can just slap it into your camera, plug it into USB-C, send image from camera to this phone, have a basically viewfinder that is calibrated, and to some people this will be a good thing, assuming you can do that, because I never tested it out, I just heard about it, so keep that in mind. And in that case, this device actually might be a fairly versatile device as a viewfinder with a calibrated display. So obviously that would make the cost significantly more palatable over the $1,000 just a device, like a phone. So in that case, it would change how I view this device if I would actually have a use for it. But as a smartphone alone, not the biggest fan, and it feels a little bit lacking in general for the price. So with that being said, if you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.